Welcome back to the Daily Bread Bible Study. Thank you for joining me for day 92 here for Wednesday, April 1st, 2020, focusing on the book of 2 Samuel, chapters 4 through 7. Today we will discuss names of places. We will also discuss dancing in the streets and then promises to be fulfilled. Starting in 2 Samuel, chapter 4, the Lord will pay back the one who does wickedly in accordance with his wickedness. This is what David said last time in our study. And these words from last time follow us today as we will see that Ishbaal is assassinated from being king over Israel. But before we discuss that, let's talk a little bit about another name, Mephibosheth. We learn about the son of Jonathan who became crippled in his feet after being dropped. His name is Mephibosheth, which means from the mouth of shame. An alternate name that is used in the Chronicles account is Merib-Baal, which means Baal quarrels. If you remember, we discussed about the waters of Meribah, where Moses saw the people of God quarrel with God, and he named the place Meribah, which means quarreling. So this gentleman's name can also be Merib-Baal, but here we have the long name Mephibosheth. So that's a mouthful. 1 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 34 names him as the son of Jonathan, Merib-Baal, and Merib-Baal, the father of Micah. This name is something that I like. It has a particular fondness to me for a couple reasons. One, it's a long and complex biblical name. It's hard to say, and it is rewarding to practice it, Mephibosheth. Second, it's the code name that my wife and I gave for our son Joel. A little bit easier to pronounce the name Joel, but this was the code name we gave him before he was born. Also, the story of David honoring his friend Jonathan through honoring Mephibosheth. That is a beautiful story, and more will be discussed in the next video that we have in this series on 2 Samuel chapter 9. That will be on day 93. So just a lot to look forward to, a little bit of a teaser for tomorrow as well. As I mentioned here, Ishbaal is assassinated. This is after his courage fails him upon finding out that his commander Abner has been murdered. Ishbaal is lying on his couch in his bedroom, and when two of his own captains come in and betray him, Rechab and Baanah kill King Ishbaal and take his head to King David. And upon receiving this undesired wickedness, the phrase that we mentioned at the very top of our start of the Daily Bread Bible Study, wickedness for wickedness, King David reinforces that wickedness will only bring more wickedness. In 2 Samuel chapter 4, 9 through 11, he says, "As the Lord lives, who has redeemed my life out of every adversity, when the one who told me, 'See, Saul is dead,' thought he was bringing good news, I seized him and killed him at Ziklag. This was the reward I gave him for his news. And how much more, then, wicked men have killed a righteous man on his own bed in his own house? And now shall I require his blood at your hand and destroy you from the earth?" And so David then has them executed and then buries the head of Ishbaal with Abner in his tomb. So moving on from a little less violence, we have 2 Samuel chapter 5. So the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David over Israel. And David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 40 years. And at Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. At Jerusalem he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. So he will be reigning 40 years in total, 33 more years there in Jerusalem. So how does he get to Jerusalem? Well, upon the Jebusites taunting the new King David, saying that even a blind and a lame person could defeat you from taking our fortified city, which was called Jebus, King David's forces capture the town of Jebus. David then renames the city of Jebus into Jerusalem and makes this fortified city the capital of his monarchy. Now, Jerusalem is mentioned here as the city of David. And in fact, the Old Testament references Jerusalem being the city of David 25 different times. Those of you familiar with the New Testament will know that Bethlehem is referenced as the city of David twice. Both of those times are in the Gospel of Luke in the second chapter in Jesus, the story of Jesus' birth. This matters because Jesus is born in Bethlehem according to Luke 2 and Matthew chapter 2. Thus, the Bible would be claiming that two cities are both, quote-unquote, the city of David, Bethlehem and Jerusalem. So, did the authors get it wrong? Are both cities actually the city of David? Well, to summarize my findings, the writer of Luke includes the reference to the city of David, mainly to connect Jesus to messianic hope in the line of David, which we will explore, that David's throne shall be established forever. Coming up at the end of this study, we'll see that reference and promise made by God. For the writer of Luke, the physical location of the birth of Jesus is less important than Jesus being a fulfillment of God's promise in that Davidic line. And so that's really all that the city of David reference is meant to do. I'm looking to do an expanded video on that topic specifically, have it be a supplement to this video, but for the sake of time, we will move on here with chapter 5. So in 2 Samuel 5:10, it says that David became greater and greater, for the Lord, the God of hosts, was with him. And 3 examples of his greatness are mentioned: that King Hiram of Tyre sends a peace offering to build David a house. So that's pretty nice. Second, David has more concubines and wives, and numerous sons and daughters, showing that his line is growing well. And then third, the Philistines who sent David away, they were afraid of him not being fighting for them in their battle against King Saul. Now that they find that he is king, they seek to attack him. King David inquires of God, and God leads the people in victories of driving out the Philistines, thus giving peace in all the land for the time being. 2 Samuel 6 goes on to see that King David tries to bring the Ark of the Covenant into the new city, the new capital, Jerusalem. He builds a new cart and goes with a multitude of people and priests to bring it into Jerusalem. There is much dancing and rejoicing, but suddenly one of the priests touches the Ark of the Covenant to keep it from bouncing around, and God sees it and kills the man instantly on the spot for touching it inappropriately. King David names the place in remembrance of the Lord's outburst and is worried that the ark might bring more anger from God than help. The king has the ark kept in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, for 3 months. Two interesting names there, Obed and Edom. Esau, Edom, the name mentioned, and then Obed, the father of Jesse, David's grandfather. But anyways, he's keeps it there. Once David believes that it is safe after 3 months, he then processes the ark into Jerusalem, making care to offer sacrifices before the Lord of oxen and also his worship. The sacrifice of worship, though, gets his wife Michal And the deceased King Saul's daughter, she takes offense at King David for his dancing, through which she says that he exposes himself to his servants' maids. David senses there is more going on with Michal than just his dancing. Maybe it's jealousy over the numerous concubines and wives that he has. Regardless, King David says, "I danced before the Lord. I will make myself even more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in my own eyes. But by the maids whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in honor." That was 2 Samuel 6:21 through 22. Reading between the lines here, the author then subtly notes that David is right and Michal is incorrect and wrong to challenge King David's authority, thus mentioning that Michal had her womb closed by God until the day of her death. Moving on to 2 Samuel 7, this is the covenant made between David and God, in which God will promise that King David's line will be established forever. This is the Davidic covenant, the promise made to God to bless King David. So, some highlights that we have, instead of reading it all to you, is that in 2 Samuel 7, verse 9, God says, "I have been with you wherever you went. I have cut off all your enemies before you. I will make you a great name, like the name of the great ones of the earth." God promises descendants in saying that in verse 12 through 13, "I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come forth from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever." This is in reference to King Solomon, who will come later. And verse 15 also says of Solomon, "I will not take my steadfast love from him, as I took it away from King Saul, whom I put away before you. Your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever." David's response is one of gratitude and humility, and I will summarize it with verses 21 through 22. David says to God, "Because of your promise and according to your own heart, you have wrought all this greatness, so that your servant may know it. Therefore you are great, O Lord God, for there is no one like you, and there is none beside you, according to all that you have heard with our ears." David gives thanks to God and prays that God's blessings will come true. And I'm going to leave it there with you as well. I pray that may God's blessings come upon you, that may you be able to give thanks for what God is doing in your life, even when it's difficult, even when it's challenging, even as we will see with King David, it is not all, just beautiful and easygoing times. There will be difficulty ahead. So may God bless you even in the difficult times and moments, and may you experience God's everlasting presence and establish your life, your whole life through.